What is going on, everyone? Make sure to like and sub, and let's get into this. The critical drinker, the gods of the internet have blessed me. From on high, two titans have released videos back to back like a fighting montage. Yesterday we had Gary. Well, actually, the same day we had Gary, and then later that night, Drinker. So first thing in the morning, here we go. Critical Drinker. He's sort of been doing a college course on this, on why modern movies suck. They all sort of come down to the same usual suspects, but this time he's on to the curse of the multiverses. And before you special few who always show up, yes, I am going to be pausing and talking about his content and over his content and making it transformative. If I was just watching it all the way through, not saying anything, that would actually be stealing it, like you come in here and accuse me of. So if you don't want an actual reaction video, my brothers in the internet gods, please go just directly to Drinker's channel. Otherwise, strap in for the Angry Badger reaction.
Riddle me this, dear viewer. When you're a movie studio that's flush with cash but short on imagination and creativity, and you want to keep exploiting an old franchise with a proven track record, but you've written yourself into a corner with poor storytelling decisions and left your franchise feeling stale and played out, or you've killed off characters that you wish you hadn't, or maybe the actors are getting too old and too expensive, what would you do?
I would use the panda stone to put a chick in it that was gay and lame.
If your answer is to hire talented writers to dig you out of the hole that you've made for yourself in a way that's logically consistent and emotionally satisfying, or create new and interesting characters to replace the ones that are aging out, or
if they could do that, they wouldn't have to race and gender swap everyone.
Even take a chance on a whole new IP that might be risky at first but offers up greater creative freedom and rewards in the long term, then clearly you're not thinking like a modern Hollywood executive. No, instead what you do is fall back on one of the laziest and contrived storytelling tropes since the rise of the unstoppable, infallible girl boss. I'm talking, of course, about multiverses.
And not all multiverses are created equal. Clearly, movies like The One are dope.
If ever you needed an example of something that sounds good on paper but becomes a complete disaster the more it's actually used, then multiverses are the thing for you. And that's not to say that it's an objectively bad idea by itself. In fact, what I hope to show with this video is that when it's properly implemented, it can actually be a very effective storytelling device. No, the problems creep in when it's put into the hands of lazy hack writers who either can't or won't work within the rules of the established universe.
Which is most writers. Most of them are lazy hack writers that will not work within the established rules. Oh, Ezra.
Or lack the imagination to move the story forward and instead devolve into the cinematic equivalent of a hyperactive toddler banging different toys together. Now, I say multiverses because, let's be honest, it's a pretty good catch-all term for what's actually a much broader and more diverse problem in the industry. And in reality, it covers pretty much everything from alternate realities to branching timelines and lazy half-explained retcons of past events. Each method is slightly different, but it all adds up to the same basic problem, and that's what I'm keen to tackle here today. So buckle up as we embark on another adventure into why modern movies suck.
It's always used as a catch-all to fix their horrible mistakes from their horrible writing, or it's used as a shortcut to get to they want to go because of their horrible mistakes and their horrible writing.
First up, let us try to understand the reason for using multiverses in a story, because there has to be some kind of motivation for doing them, right? Well, if I had to sum it up with two simple words, then they would probably be, what if? See, one of the great aspects of storytelling is speculating on the road not taken and what effect it might have had on your favourite story and characters. Like, what if Darth Vader offered Luke the chance to join him in Empire and Luke said, "You son of a bitch, I'm in!" Or what if Saruman
There is literally, and these are good, a Star Wars comics called Star Wars Infinities that are the what ifs. What if Luke Skywalker died on Empire or on Hoth and wasn't able to make it to Dagobah? What if Luke joined? These are answered in Star Wars Infinities.
Managed to steal the One Ring for himself, or Obi-Wan Kenobi died instead of Qui-Gon Jinn, or Khan defeated Kirk and went on to build a new civilization for himself, or General Bison was finally able to build Bisonopolis with an even bigger food court. All of these things are pretty interesting to speculate on because they allow us to indulge our own imagination and creativity to think about what we might have done if we were in charge of telling the story. Hollywood studios understand that same desire, and just like anything else where there's a latent demand for something, sooner or later they'll find a way to exploit it for money. And really,
Cameos and multiverses everywhere.
multiverses are the quickest and easiest way of doing it. Wish that Tony Stark had survived his final battle with Thanos? Don't worry, we can just hop into a different dimension and there he is, alive and well. Wish that Finn had become the last Jedi instead of Rey? Well, it happened an infinite number of times in other realities, and all it takes is a jump into a space whale or a bit of dicking around in the world between worlds to see it happen. Wish that Kyle Reese was still alive after Terminator 1? Nothing a bit of time travel can't fix. Pretty much anything.
Kyle Reese is alive in our hearts and minds. Never forget his sacrifice.
Is possible because you're no longer bound by the rules of the existing universe or even what happened in it up
No one's
until
ever
that
really
point.
gone.
It's literally a dream come true for any writer brought into a long-running franchise with a ton of lore and backstory and tedious rules to remember, because it allows them to basically ignore all of it and do whatever the fuck they feel like. Yeah, so Darth Vader can shoot bolts of force lightning out of his arse now, and I don't care that he's dead and that's impossible because this is a different reality, you see? Hurry up and bring me another line.
And what sucks is when you point out like a mistake like that, these jalubs will be like, so who cares? It's a fictional movie. It's like, so what the fuck is the point of making any sort of verisimilitude or any sort of like rules of the fiction? Yeah, the idea is to get someone to suspend their disbelief, which means you have to make as much shit make sense so that when you ask them to believe some crazy stuff, everything else sort of makes sense. So the ask is not that hard. But when everything and nothing makes sense, it's just arbitrary as hell. Well, then the whole thing collapses, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's the shit. The avenues for exploring new paths and possibilities are quite literally unlimited, but so are the problems that they create, and this is the heart of the issue here. See, the only reason we as the audience ever get invested in a story, any story really, is because of stakes. If a character gets killed halfway through the story, then just like in real life, they're gone forever. It doesn't matter how much you like them or how badly you want them to pull through, they're dead and they're not coming back. If they're a well-written character that the audience empathizes with, then it creates a genuine sense of loss and grief, almost like you've lost a real friend. That right there is the power of storytelling when it's done right. And the more the writers raise the possibility that even the most popular characters can die and be lost forever, the more they raise those all-important dramatic stakes because something that you care about is now in danger. But what happens when you introduce multiverses into the equation? Well, quite simply, you remove any sense of stakes. Suddenly death becomes less of a permanent tragic loss and more of a temporary inconvenience, a bit like restarting a...
The only reason I can't 100% co-sign this view is because it's very likely that our world is a multiverse. Very likely. And that there are 1,000 billion quadrillion other yous. And I think it would be disingenuous and disheartening if one of you beautiful subscribers or listeners were to die or be hurt and we just went, it doesn't matter. There's another one of you in another multiverse. So yeah, I get his point, but at the other time, it always matters no matter how many times. If every time Tony Stark came by, we would still be upset that Tony Stark was being killed. I don't know. Something to think about.
Level on a video game. Who cares that Character X heroically sacrificed their life to save their friends because in an infinite number of other realities he's completely fine? Shit man, if we really want to, we can even grab one of those other versions and pull them into our own reality as a convenient replacement. I mean, we wouldn't want the audience to feel bad or anything.
Thank God
which
we can't
really
do
is
that.
the narrative equivalent of having your cake and eating it. On a personal level, individual stakes no longer exist because characters no longer exist as single unique entities that actually matter. Instead, each one is just an insignificant variation of an infinitely larger whole with endless variety and complexity that can never truly die or succeed at anything, and so there's literally no reason to get invested in their struggle because there's infinite variations of it out there. It's the same problem when it comes to time travel, which is another bullshit method of undoing past events and rewriting your own story to suit your current needs. Like, how many times has the Terminator franchise been ripped up, rebuilt, and rewritten, constantly changing and contradicting its own rules in the process. Everything we saw in the future was predetermined, and trying to change it actually causes it to happen in the first place. Actually, no, forget that. We just changed the future to make it better now. Nah, actually, the future was always going to happen this way. You only managed to delay it.
And that is actually my preferred, because that goes into the, well, Gary would appreciate this, that timey-wimey explanation of that there are fixed points, fixed points in time, that they're always going to happen. They have to happen. A lot of lore has that, the fixed points in time, that no matter what you do, you can't change it.
You sort of agree with that idea, but here's a bunch of additional tacked on shit that you never wanted or needed. Nope, in fact, now we've gone back and messed with the past as well because we're fucking idiots. Wait, hold my beer. Ignore what everyone else said because we've got an even worse storyline in to replace it. At a certain point, it becomes a complete waste of time to care about anything that happens in those movies because the next one's probably just going to undo everything you just saw. The T-800 sacrificing himself for the good of humanity was an awesome scene in Terminator 2, but now that I've seen it happen like 3 times in 3 different movies, it's not quite so special anymore. Now, believe it or not, Hollywood writers actually understand this problem that multiverses and branching timelines create for the audience. Unfortunately, their solution is almost as bad as the problem it's trying to solve because it involves ratcheting up the...
And just regarding Terminator, I think we should all make a pact that T3 and Terminator Salvation get a pass and we fucking erase the rest of them. I think that's fair. I do think it's fair. It was a circle. It was as close as we're going to get to the future war, and Kristana Loken is hot. So 1, 2, 3, and Terminator Salvation, and the rest didn't happen.
Stakes to literally astronomical levels. Now it's not just a group of likable characters you care about that are in danger, or even the entire human race. It's literally the entirety of all existence across the multiverse. Wow, that's really big. And big equals good, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He's probably going to make a sex joke.
Wrong.
Because here's the thing.
I have been lied to. I have been lied to for years.
The human mind isn't really designed to comprehend the world in terms of infinite possible realities across infinite universes, especially not on the kind of visceral emotional level that you need to sustain dramatic tension. Instead, it becomes nothing but an...
Drinker has shown Moon Knight in this video more than he showed up in his own goddamn show.
Intellectual exercise, as dry and disengaging as a stock market summary. You understand the words that are being said and what's being risked on an intellectual level, but you don't really feel the magnitude of it, because how can you? How can you even begin to comprehend something so impossibly vast? This problem also gives rise to a phenomenon that I can best describe as antagonist dilution. Like, remember Agent Smith from The Matrix? Remember how he was this really sinister, intimidating antagonist because he was intelligent and ruthless and physically powerful and basically unkillable? And it took Neo literally dying to discover the power needed to defeat him? He was a pretty good villain. I liked him. Then cast your mind forward to The Matrix Reloaded, where Smith was able to replicate himself to the point where Neo ends up fighting dozens, if not hundreds of him all at the same time. Remember how much less intimidating and interesting he became?
Oh, thank God I get to legitimately disagree with the fucking Drinker. He's so much more terrifying as a virus version of Agent Smith. He can fucking take you over and then use your body to go... No, sorry, hard disagree. He's way more terrifying as a fucking endless army of zombie, whatever, we are takeover agent version. Good, Drinker, finally. It's very rare we ever fully disagree with him. Fully disagree on that.
Became because individually he was no threat at all, and his only strength lay in his sheer weight of numbers. That right there is antagonist dilution, just like with the
And it was also supposed to represent the... See, the problem is they don't like the movies afterwards, so they haven't paid attention to shit. It was also supposed to represent the fact that Agent Smith is the balance to Neo. So as Neo was getting stronger and stronger and stronger, the balance to that was Agent Smith in his own way getting stronger and stronger and stronger by corrupting the system. Yeah, it's fun. Star Wars, they all make the same analogies of the light and dark and corruption and balance.
Multiple realities problem, our primitive monkey brains are conditioned to view characters as individuals, not as facets of a much larger whole. Antagonists are much more effective and memorable when they're conglomerated into a single powerful entity rather than a collection of weaker individuals. It's one of the many reasons that Kang the Conqueror was a fucking terrible idea as a villain, notwithstanding Jonathan Major's ridiculous overacting and career-ending legal problems.
Yeah, I have friends who like it, and you know who you are. I didn't. I didn't. It was way too stage acty. I'm sorry. And this is way before any allegations, convictions happened.
Problems. It's that we can't really view antagonists as a threat when you show them getting beaten again and again by low-level characters and try to wave it all away by saying, well, that's just one example of him. There's millions of other more dangerous versions out there, don't you know? No, we don't, and we don't care how dangerous he is as a collective whole, because that's not how we view people, and we never will. Now, much as I've shat on the concept of multiverses, I also want to make it clear that the real problem lies in the implementation, the overuse, and the lazy short-sighted focus on novelty over meaningful storytelling, rather than it just being a fundamentally bad idea in the first place. Plenty of movies and shows have made effective use of alternate realities, like the TNG episode Tapestry, where a dying Picard laments the reckless youth that ultimately landed him in this position in the first place, and is given a chance to see what his life would have been like if he'd lived more sensibly and cautiously. Yeah, he ends up surviving, but the problem is that he becomes a boring arsehole who never amounts to much of anything, to the point where the real Picard decides he'd rather die as the man he is now than live on as the one he just saw. It's a potent reminder of the importance of taking risks, seizing opportunities, and making the most of what life has to offer, and it's all contained within a single episode.
If you have never watched The Next Generation, yeah, it's a little rough the first season, and whatever, it finds its legs the third. I think they're all great. I love all the seasons, especially now they've been remastered. They're all 4K. Please do yourself a favor. Watch some Jean-Luc Picard. It is they're all great. Beverly Crusher, Will Riker, they're all really, 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 really good.
Another example comes from Red Dwarf, a British sci-fi comedy series about a group of weirdos and slackers stranded millions of years from home. In the episode Dimension Jump, a new version of Arnold Rimmer arrives in our reality from a different universe, better known in this case as Ace Rimmer. Unlike our version, this one's charismatic, charming, and heroic. Everyone else is smitten with him except Rimmer himself, who takes an instant dislike to him because he assumes the guy must have had all the opportunities and lucky breaks that he never got. He's a living example of what Rimmer could have been if he'd had a better lot in life, and it feeds into the persecution complex that pretty much defines his character throughout the show. But in a neat little twist, we ultimately find out that Ace was kept back a year at school when he was still a kid, while our Rimmer was allowed to go on and graduate as normal. Instead of breaking him, the humiliation of his failure forced Ace to work harder and better himself, ultimately becoming a much stronger and more capable man as a result.
That is way too much work. That takes way too much talent to do that. They can't do that.
Whereas our Rimmer became complacent and blamed everyone else for his failures in life. It's an interesting little character study and an excellent example of how failure can be the making of a person or the breaking of them. It all just depends on how you deal with it. I could go on and on with this stuff, but the point I'm making here is that multiverses can be a useful tool in giving characters and the audience a different perspective on things they normally take for granted, but they function best when they're used sparingly. Neither of the examples I gave here had world-changing consequences for the wider show they were part of. They didn't try to frame themselves as epic confrontations where the fate of all reality hung in the balance. They were just little windows into other possible futures that eventually snapped shut once they'd served their purpose, and in both cases, they were used to support excellent writing rather than compensate for its absence. That right there is the big difference between them, and it's one that Hollywood writers would do well to remember. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
That's great, and I'm realizing now that a lot of that doesn't matter because based on that, all those film threat, the articles and exposés, based on all the articles they've gotten, we can't fix it. This is great for if we ever get real writers back. But right now, we have writer rooms on every show, on every movie that are filled, paid for by the WGA with essentially just young, inexperienced activists that don't know, and they're told this is a virtue. They don't know anything about the source material. And all they're there to do is to change it, add the message to it. And that's it. And then they leave after it's gone. So we can't even begin to absorb and fix this until that problem, the whole if it's male and pale, it's stale issue is dealt with. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. Drinker's the GOAT. Please go like and subscribe to him. He's almost at 2 million subscribers. So clearly he needs my help. Please. Thank you. If you've liked and subscribed here, thank you. If you're going to do that, thank you. And we will see you on the next one. Or go away now.